And welcome to September, everyone. Hard to believe, but it is kind of like the business new year. And what a great time to have my guest on today. So, I am Helen Harwood Snell. I'm an expert storyteller, a certified communication coach, and I have a curiosity that is fed about learning all about people and the work that they do in the world. So, I use story to empower entrepreneurs with conversion content for everything from emails to published books. And each week I introduce to you a new guest. So today we're doing something a little bit different, and I am also going live to YouTube. What I was doing in the past was editing and uploading there later, but I've decided I'm going to take advantage of all of the channels all at the same time. So we are going live to YouTube today as well. So if you're watching live, please say hello. If you're watching on the replay, give us a hashtag replay. And if there's any questions you have, I'll try to follow the chat and see if I can answer those. But I am welcoming today Lynn Whitbeck. So Lynn is the queen of joyful sales. She is hired by business owners to ignite their winning sales because most people, most entrepreneurs fail to create that consistent, repeatable, scalable growth. She's the founder and CEO of Petite to Queen. She's an Amazon best-selling author, speaker, and host of two shows, Claim Your Career Crown and Get More Clients. In her spare time, we'll be talking about this a little more because I love stories. She loves visiting national parks, cooking, and playing Pokemon Go. So let's find out how all of those things can help you in sales with your business. Welcome, Lynn.
Oh, Helen, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun ride.
It is. It is. So I always love to find out who the person is behind the business. So tell me a little bit about these national parks and Pokemon Go and all things that inspire Lynn when she's not working.
Well, national parks are just one of those passions, and I really enjoy visiting the national parks, doing the walks, doing the interpretive centers. My daughter's my buddy in doing that, and every time we have any kind of a road trip, we take the road less traveled and try to see how many national parks we can visit on the way. And the last one was when she had finished graduate school, so I was moving her back in June of this year. And we went to Mono Lake, we went to Mammoth, we went to Lassen, we went to Crater Lake. I mean, it was sort of like the national park tour all the way on the road less traveled until we
That's
finally
so
got to
fun.
Crater Lake and we cut over to I-5 at that point.
That's awesome. And how did that start? Like, were you interested in like nature as a child? Like, what kind of inspired the whole national park thing?
I'm sure that my parents took us to some national parks and things like that, but it really became um, something that my daughter and I just started really doing together. And we really enjoyed it. It was fascinating. We want to read every little piece of every placard, go through the little videos if they have them or the movies in the theater, talk to the rangers and look at where there's trail walks that we can do. So there's just so much both history, both natural history and human history. There's the geology, which is always really fascinating. And so it's just another sort of aspect of learning.
Yeah,
It's
I
so
love
funny
that.
because
So there's a little bit of education and a little bit of family time that
yeah.
just kind of culminates into those road trips. That's awesome. Um, Tell us more about you. What else kind of sparks joy in your life besides sales?
Well, I'm a naturally cheerful, joyful person. Joy is one of those things, it's like love. You can always create more, it's ever expanding. And so, whenever you're in even the darkest of times, you can make that choice of looking for that silver lining, right? Where uh, it's always there. And the choice can be difficult and it can be hard at that moment. Um, but there is another way to look at things. I mean, my darkest one was when my late husband was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And yes, I did have a 2-week pity party, maybe a week, but it was still that choice was there. That was the hand we were dealt, and we could either wallow in that, or I could, or we could choose the best path forward.
Mm.
And we did. We actually went to one of the national parks in Vancouver, Washington. We did all that just fun stuff. We went to Sweden. I mean, we made all kinds of precious memories in that time.
Yep. That's
And
fantastic.
so it was, in a weird way, it was this amazing end of life experience for him.
Mm. Yeah, that reminds me, years ago, I knew a woman in my church congregation who was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And it ended up, I mean, she's still with us. So it ended up being something that had been there her whole life. It kind of came up in an x-ray of something else. But of course, when you have a diagnosis like that, that's what happened with her relationship. Her husband and her, really focused on the things that were important. And she kind of jokes now, like, if you want to improve your marriage, just tell your husband you have a brain tumor. But that's it's such a great attitude. So joy, as you said, is one of those things that we choose. So I would suggest then that joy might be a core value for you. Can you share another one or two core values that you have?
Absolutely. So, a core value of mine is, to give first, share always. I mean, uh, it's to approach things with worthy intent, where I genuinely desire to help and serve and create lasting impact. Um, to show up as my best self, in the situation. If um, an observation is negative, look for the positive. Like, oh, it was horrible getting here with traffic. It was so bad. Well, but I've got extra time to listen to my Audible book. And, it's like there's
Exactly.
always a flip side. And like I said, sometimes it can be hard to find that, but it's there. Um, it's really to think about how we live each day so that we are showing up as our best self.
Amazing. Tell me if you can share who might be a hero of yours, someone you look up to.
Well, gosh, I mean, right now, I have to say that there's somebody who's really stepped into that role, um, unbeknownst to her, probably. And so I am now a managing director of the eWomen Network here in Greater Seattle. And really, the person who stepped into that role is the leader of the business, the CEO, Sandra Yancey, and she is very inspiring to me. She's just got a heart of gold, but at the same time, she's very focused on business success of you know, helping and serving, while at the same time being a successful business owner. So, finding that balance, and also the balance with your family and loved ones. So, she's someone that I haven't even known that long, truth be
That's
told.
amazing. Yeah.
And
No,
I've been really inspired by her in so many ways.
yeah. And I can see that someone like yourself who, obviously you're a very nurturing, caring person, and that can often be a bit of a stumbling block in business, right? When you want to give and you want to help others, finding that balance of success can actually be difficult. So it's great to find someone who's doing that, and that you can find perspective from and leadership from. And I love that it's just something new in your life that you've just gravitated to, right? It's we don't always have to be inspired by lifelong heroes. We can have different heroes at different times in our lives, and so I love that. So tell us now, we've talked a little bit about joy, and I love that your business is the joy of sales. So tell us now about your audience, what it is that you do in your business. I'm sorry, share with the audience what it is that you do in your business.
Well, the business is called Petite to Queen, and so we our business owners hire us because they want a consistent, repeatable, scalable sales process, which is profitable and joyful. So they are tired of chasing the shiny object, not sure what works or why it doesn't work. They really are stuck doing all the sales or having a core group of people, and they can't grow beyond that because they haven't figured it out. So, one of the key things about scaling is you have to have a sales blueprint. You have to have a process map. And if you don't have that, you're not it's going to be really hard to bring people in sales and have them be successful because they're just mini entrepreneurs doing whatever. Some will do okay, some won't. Maybe every so often you'll find a unicorn, but my goodness, it's exhausting working through all that. And you've just spent a whole lot of time, money, and resources, you know?
Hmm.
So, one of the key things is working that out so that you have a very clear cut sales process. And this is not memorizing scripts and reading from a script or anything stupid like that. But it is understanding your ideal client, how they think, why it matters, and so they can. What are they trying to achieve? What's that goal? What's that dream? What's the aspiration? So that you can model your business that way and then structure how that intersection comes together, your clients, yourself, and your product or service.
And so you mentioned teams. So do you work with corporate sales groups, or do you also work individually with entrepreneurs?
Yeah, my corporate days have passed. So I work with small businesses, and I tend to steer away from corporate America at this point in time. So
Okay.
been there, done that.
And so you would work with like a solopreneur or someone with a small sales staff as well.
Yeah, it's really that range. Every so often, I do work with solopreneurs, but normally it's a small business, and they may not have people in direct sales yet. The owner may still be managing most of the sales, but that's literally limiting them. That's holding them back, and they need to make that transition.
Hmm. So that's actually really an important thing to highlight is that often you're working with companies before they have a sales team because you need to put these things in place to actually be able to scale.
Yeah, or they have a small team, but it's just not working, and they're not
Hmm.
closing the sales that they need to. They really don't know why, and what's happening, and often there's a misalignment. To be honest, the first misalignment is, with their client thinking. They have a perception in their mind about why clients hire them and what's going on, and there's often a disconnect with reality as to from the client's perspective, and that's the one that matters because it's your client who says yes. They're the ones who hire you. So you
Yes.
really have to have that alignment in place. And I have seen this. I mean, this was common in corporate America. I mean, this is a common part of the sales puzzle that is wrong. It's doesn't fit, or it fit at one time and your clients have evolved, your business has evolved, and they no longer fit.
And so in that, how is it that you how would it that you would define joy in going through this process in um this kind of place of curiosity and concern and figuring out what it is your client needs? How is it that you suggest people find joy in that process?
Well, hopefully, with the people who work with me, they find joy in the service or the product that they deliver and that impact that they deliver. That literally fills them up. It makes them joyful when they've been able to help and serve others with their product or service. So that is a place where, the more clients you serve, the more that creates, right? So
Yes.
but also having that a plan and a blueprint that you follow, that gives you more confidence and assurance. It lends itself to your whole team so they know what to do in situations or what
Hmm.
asset to pull, how to reply, how to respond in a given situation. And that translates into a better client experience. And that in turn translates to more business with that client, retaining that
Yes.
business, getting more business, getting introductions and referrals.
Yeah. And absolutely, I think that's one thing a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with is, joy. Joy and selling don't seem to go in the same sentence. Most people, think of sales as work, or think of sales as, convincing someone or whatever that may be. And I think it's such a key um, point that you made, that when you're serving, right, your joy comes from serving. And if you can look at sales as service, you're providing a service, you're not selling something to someone who doesn't need it,
Yeah.
right? That's It's such a shift in mindset. But I also think, myself included, many entrepreneurs don't consider the concept of selling when they start their business.
No.
They have a product or a service, they think everyone's just going to want it. And they don't really think about the marketing and the sales. And so, I love the fact that your taglines, if you will, look at this whole kind of personal side of things with joy and creativity, but also like a blueprint, because there are people out there who need a step-by-step system to follow. And so it's so great that you actually kind of integrate those things together. I'm all about, speaking to people's values, and so that makes so much sense to me, that you're taking this kind of fun and playful sense of things, but then also like a strategy, and meshing that together.
Yeah.
So I'd love if you could tell us a little bit more about the path in your business to how you got to this petite to queen branding, and I'd love to know, the idea behind that, petite to queen.
So there's a lot of different ways you can look at it. So we looked at it in two different senses. So the first is that, what matters to us is that value matchup. So I don't care if you have purple hair and tats, and that includes whether you're a petite size person or a queen size person, right? So petite to queen. The other side is that you can go from having a petite size business to a queen size business,
There
right?
you
And
go.
running
Yeah.
your kingdom. And so that is really, this petite to queen is really helping you really visualize that, once again, that growth journey.
Mm,
And you don't
okay.
have the growth journey if you don't have systems and processes in place so that you can grow in a smoother, smarter, more profitable manner.
Yes.
So, because otherwise you can, when sales is an operation, it's an operation within a business, right? But it's also the most key piece of any business, because if you do not sell something, you will not stay in business, because it's
Yes.
just that simple. Sales, love it or hate it, you are not going to survive without it.
Yes.
So there is that side. And you already said it. There's a big mindset shift that a lot of people look at sales as sleazy and icky and manipulative because they've had that experience.
Yes.
However, when you align your values and your client thinking for your clients, now you're creating a completely different setting. And that's really a setting to invite them to do business with you.
Yes.
And you're not pitching or selling, you're providing a product or service, and you're a trusted partner,
Mm, yeah.
providing them with the solution to get them from where they are to where they want to be.
Yes, that's a great way to frame that. And so, tell us a little bit more then about how you got all of this great knowledge that you're now sharing. What's been your journey?
Well, I mean, if you wanna start with a story, I can tell you a story about how I sort of got started in sales, and it goes all the way back to when I was a young girl, 11 years old and in Girl Scouts, and I was old enough to sell cookies, and that year, we had a brand new cookie badge. It was a very special cookie badge, and you had to sell a truckload of cookies to earn this cookie badge. And I coveted that cookie badge. I mean, I really wanted it. So, that very first day, I went out with my best friend and we loaded up my little red wagon, that red radio flyer wagon with cookies, hauled it along the sidewalk and, the leaning tower of cookies as we're going over the sidewalk, right? That was an adventure. went door to door and discovered a number of things. Hey, first of all, it was not easy hauling that wagon along with the Leaning Tower cookies. Second, not everybody was home. Three, even when they were home, they didn't necessarily buy, or if they bought, my friend Judy was so shy and introverted, she would not leave the wagon at the sidewalk. I would go to the house. They'd say, "Oh, yeah, I'll get 2 boxes of samosas," so I'd run back to the wagon and get the cookies, right? Run them back and then, "Oh, wait, we want some shortbread too." I'd run back to the wagon. So by the end of that very first day, I was really despondent. I'm going like, "How am I gonna sell a truckload of cookies to get this cookie badge?" And at dinner that night, I'm telling my parents, "I don't know how I'm gonna make this happen. It's really important to me." And I loved being a Girl Scout, and I loved the cookies too, right? But, there's only so many cookies I could sell to my family and friends. So, my dad, he just looked at me and he said, "Lynn, where do people buy their cookies?" It was the grocery store. I immediately responded, and the next day, we had a totally different plan. Still had my little red flyer wagon, but we had set up in front of the local grocery store. That wagon had cookies in the back, and my friend Judy stood behind the table. She took the money and handed them the cookies, and I was out front like the Walmart greeter, bringing them in. And every day we did that. So we created a repeatable process. We went to where our clients were, and we sold a boatload of cookies, and a
For
truckload
you.
of cookies, I should say, because we were the only 2 girls in our district to win that cookie badge, and we were the
Congratulations.
youngest 2 girls in the state to do it that year.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah.
Amazing. And so that kind of set you on your sales journey. Have you been in sales then your
When
whole
you
life?
love your product or service and what you do, I mean, I'm selling cookies, but those cookies bring joy, they're great snacks. I'm sorry, but who doesn't want one of those shortbread cookies with their tea? They're really good. And so, you know, and I loved the organization. So the business, when you have these things that are coming together, uh, whether you're selling cookies or you're coaching or you're repairing a vehicle that's been in a collision, whatever that happens to be, you take real pride in your work and the results that you deliver. Then it's a matter of inviting your ideal clients in so they can have the pleasure of working with you.
Yes, absolutely. And I know, one of the talks that I give on storytelling, I talk about the fact that when I was in the corporate world, it was very easy for me to sell the product that I believed in or the company. And then all of a sudden, when I was an entrepreneur and I had to sell myself, it was a very different story, right? Because all of a sudden I made it personal rather than thinking about, again, the service or the impact that I was selling to my client. I was thinking of, oh my goodness, this is me that they're saying no to. It can become very personalized that way, right? So
Yeah.
again, I love the framing of that about, um, you know, selling confidence in the product, understanding your customer. That's really what it's all about. And I think working with someone like you, that's can really help people dig in and discover, maybe they're looking in the wrong place for their clients. They're knocking door to door when they should be in front of the grocery store or whatever that situation might be, right?
Yeah.
So I'd love to know a little bit more about the shows that you do as well. Can you tell us about Claim Your Career Clown? Clown.
Thinking
My
Jester
goodness,
here. We're
it must
thinking
it must
Jester.
be Tuesday after the long weekend. Claim Your Career Crown and get more clients. What are those shows about?
So, Claim Your Career Crown, actually, Helen, you've been my guest, is an interview. We interview people and basically talk about work, life, and sales. So no one on their deathbed says, "Gosh, if only I'd closed that big deal." I mean, I certainly hope not, because that tells you a lot about that person. So, but it's really about that balance. And sales is in every aspect of our life, whether you think so or not, whether you're climbing the corporate career ladder, there's nothing you can do that would be better for your career than to take sales training so that you know how to negotiate, you know how to work with different types of people, flex your style, what are deal points, how to set expectations, how to follow up, all of the things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the same thing with sales is work, right? And that's balancing that work. And once again, you got to have a life. Go to national parks, play Pokemon Go, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
So that's what Claim Your Career Crown is about. And Get More Clients is primarily me, and I'm teaching and training on sales every week. So it's an entire vault, treasure trove of
Mm.
sales tips and insights so that you can grow your business.
Excellent. And where can people find these shows?
Well, both shows are on all the platforms, so,
Okay.
and, the easiest, of course, is if you go to our website, petitequeen.com, and that's the petite and the digit 2, queen.com. Then you can find both shows. TV shows are right up in the main menu, and then the Claim Your Career Crown podcast is in resources, and then you can subscribe wherever you get your shows.
Yes. Excellent. Okay. So, anything more that you'd like to share about your business? Do you have a special offer or anything, a workshop coming up that you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, I would love to let them know that if they're concerned about what's going on with their sales, that on our website we have a checklist. And this is really going to help you identify if there are gaps in your sales process and where those gaps are, or if it's just something that you need a little bit of a minor refinement. And it's going to be able to give you that insight so you can make some immediate changes that will help you in your sales and in your business. And you can get that at P and the digit 2 q dot link / checklist. So p2q.link / checklist. It's also, if you go to the website, it's right at the top of the fold. So it's super easy. You can grab that checklist, and that's going to help you with your sales and really identify where you may have gaps and opportunities, and that you can, really work on what's the number one. I always think of it as triage in a battlefield. What's the number one thing that you can do that's going to make a difference?
Excellent. I love that. It's always a great place for people to start is find out where you're at, right?
Yeah.
And a checklist is a great way to do that. And I love that it is actionable, something that people can step into and make a change in their business right away. So that's great. So now I love to show the audience how storytelling can really make a difference, bringing some of these elements together from what we've talked about today. And, I talk with people a lot about using storytelling to help them with sales. So I think this will be really easy for me to create a story for you about the sales process. But I would love to just have you share a story with me, and then I'm going to turn that into a business story that you might be able to share with an audience at one of your upcoming talks, maybe even that you were just telling me about before we went live.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that I'll be speaking at a conference here in just a few weeks. And one of the key things that people often forget in their sales process are referrals. So, what I'd like to tell you about is a company that I worked with to improve that. So, it's really about getting reviews and referrals from their patients. And one of the things that's key about this is anytime you're in any kind of the health services, medical practice, mental health, dental, you know, it's not the doctor or the dentist who's a doctor who's asking for the referrals. Normally it's their staff. And the patient has a life cycle when you're looking at that. So, one of the key things when you're working on identifying that is, what does that cycle look like? When have you earned the right to ask for a referral or a review? How do you ask? Right? You have to ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. And then how
Mhm.
do you reward that behavior so it will repeat? And one of the key things about running a practice is those reviews, those 5-star reviews are incredibly important, so that's what people are seeing. And then also how you manage your reviews. If you do get a less than 5-star review, how you respond and handle that. So that was one of the key things that we worked with a dental practice that had 4 locations, and worked through that training for their staff on when to ask and how to ask. What was the language? And really helping them make it their own, because it has to be originally authentic, right? But knowing the words and the right timing. So when you have that information, and also something went slightly sideways, how to get everything back on track. I mean, that's not the time to, when someone's been waiting in the lobby for an hour, that's not the time to ask, right? So working through that with them. And we went through that process, did the training, the ongoing support, and in 60 days, they had their best month ever. And the next year, they had a fifth location. So, all through the power of knowing, training their team on when they can ask, how to ask, and then rewarding their team and their patients for providing those referrals and reviews.
Excellent. Congratulations on that. That's wonderful. Normally, when I do this kind of story at the close of the podcast, I like to focus on something that's more of a personal story.
Okay.
But because you've shared this, I think the story that I would share is from that. Um, you know, you may not think that you're actually. How do I want to phrase this? You may not think of sales in the proper context in your business. And here's a perfect example to talk about this dentist's office. We might think of selling as in you need, do you want, your teeth whitened, or do you need a crown, or do you need some kind of upgrade? Often that's what we think of when we think of sales. And what you really need to do is shift that idea to sales are actually a big part of customer service.
Yeah.
And so when your clients are happy and you can get those referrals and those reviews, that is the sales, duplicable, repeatable sales process that everyone can use. So I think kind of the story that I get out of that is often we don't think of sales in a team atmosphere like that. We think of sales as being someone on the road or on the phone, and so it's a new way to look at sales when you're looking at it from kind of the back end, if you will.
Yeah.
So it's a little more difficult for me to make a story of that because it already is a story. But I think that would kind of be the message or the lesson there is that sales is often addressed at the front end of your business, and you need to look at it at the back end of your business would be, I think, a really strong message there for sure. So thank you so much for joining me, Lynn. It was a pleasure to have you, and thank you for the audience, those of you who are watching live and those who are watching on the replay. As I said, stories create these meaningful connections with your audience. There's science-backed data that show that you create a neural pathway between the storyteller and the listener, and that actually helps build trust in a sales presentation. So with all of the, great information that Lynn has provided us about having your structure to find joy in your sales, don't forget to add those stories in there as well that are going to connect with your client and make the the trust, build the trust, and give you the opportunity to actually close those sales. So reach out if you are curious about booking a spot on Tuesday Tales, if you're an entrepreneur, or send me a message and tell me more what you might need to learn about storytelling for when I do one of my solo podcasts. I'd love to share that with you. And visit my links to find out how you can incorporate story to establish your brand, speak from stage, or share your wisdom in a book. Don't forget to look for Lynn at petitetoqueen.com. And we look forward to seeing you all again next Tuesday.
Thank you so much.